about something that is really important, I'm pretty passionate about, and it's setting goals, but more importantly, this evening is really about how to take something that is a goal and make it actually happen. Because everybody's pretty good at setting goals. It's easy to just throw a goal out there and be like, oh, here it is. But what's difficult is taking the steps on a daily basis to make that stuff occur. This is going to be this is a little chopped off, but a lot of this content is Tony Robbins oriented, but a lot of it is stuff I've developed as well. So there is going to be opportunity to learn more of this stuff when you're finished. But this quote, setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. So if you don't make a goal, the likelihood that it's ever going to occur is slim to none. That's really just glorified wishing. So as we get into this conversation, one of the things we want to talk about first is terminology. Very important. We want to talk about outcomes versus goals. What happens if you set a goal and you don't achieve it generally? How does that make you guys feel? Anybody? Disappointed? Bad? Any range of negative emotions like that? Now, how about when you set an outcome and you get an outcome that's different than the outcome that you expected to get? Does that feel different? That happens more often than not. Usually we end up getting something that is not what we thought that we wanted, but is still better off than we were to begin with. So we want to talk in terms of outcome, because you're always going to get an outcome. So if the outcome isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be, you have the opportunity to tweak what you were doing and keep working towards it. Whereas if you just set a goal and you don't hit the goal, you're discouraged. And that kind of brings me into this year, which is the success cycle. I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but this is happening all the time. When you're thinking about setting your goals and when you're thinking about something that it is you want to do, how much potential do you have? How much potential do you have? Unlimited. That's how everybody always says it. Unlimited. But it's unlimited, right? Everybody that's on the face of the earth that's achieving anything has the same amount of potential that we have, but we're not normally considering that. We're thinking about, what happened last week that was bad? What did I just see on the news? This, that, or the other thing. We're not really thinking about, I woke up today, I can do whatever I want with it. So when you start out thinking about the potential, you have to, in order to use as much of that potential, you have to start believing what's possible. And that's where you got to kind of get in your headspace, eliminating negative input. News is my favorite one. And start putting positive content into your head, because that does have an impact. It's not that there's not no impact for it. It doesn't do nothing just from you hearing this stuff. So you really have to think about the people you're spending time with, the content you're consuming, social media, news, who you're spending the most time with. And one of the things you're going to want to do is to do what you guys have done this evening, put yourself in rooms with other people that are trying to do what it is that you want to do, or even better, that have already done what it is you're trying to do. Because by being around people like that, it's going to make you believe that it is possible. One of my favorite things is when you see somebody that, I don't want to say is not as smart as you, or they don't have advantages that you have, and they're being extraordinarily successful, then you're like, well, if they can do it, why can't I do it? So it's really refreshing when you see that. When you see somebody that you perceive as more skilled than you doing something, it feels the other way. You're like, oh, I can never do that. So it's always kind of refreshing to be around other people that are doing it. And even if you perceive somebody as being more skilled with you, they got that way from making mistakes. So bottom line, you want to be around people that are doing what it is you're trying to do as often as possible. Listen to positive podcasts, read, is the best way for you to believe that it is possible. I wouldn't recommend anybody like coming here for the first night and then going and buying a property tomorrow. Probably not the way to do it. But if you come here for a couple months, educate yourself, read, listen to podcasts, get around other people that are doing it, there's no reason to believe that you couldn't buy something here by the end of the year or within the next couple of months. But you need to first work on your belief. So increasing your belief that you'll be able to do it is going to allow you to tap into a lot more of your potential. So then when you take action, when you buy a property, which is really the most important part, the only reason we really need belief and potential is so we actually do something with it. If you have tons of potential, but you just sit in your chair and have potential, it's like a body at rest. If I kick the chair out from under you, then you're going to move. But other than that, like you have to have your belief in order to use the potential that you have to take action. So what happens if you have high belief, you're using a lot of your potential, you're taking action, you're going to start getting results, good results, and that's going to reinforce to yourself that you really can do it. If you don't do anything, you're not going to get results, and then you're going to be like, oh, well, I knew I couldn't do it. I told, that negative voice in your head is going to start telling you all kinds of stuff. So this is happening all the time. You're either taking actions and getting results, and that's fueling your belief that you can do more, or you're not doing anything, not getting any results, and then your negative self-talk is harming your potential. So you always want to be cognizant of where you're at and how you're thinking and what you're doing as you're working through these goals. Outcomes, sorry. So a lot of the challenges that folks have when we talk about goal setting or outcomes isn't that you have too many, it's that you have too few. So, people have, what do we have in January? New Year's resolutions, right? So everybody has like a resolution. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. I'll use my one I've been working on for a couple years, which I'm finally doing something about, get a broker's license. So you have these goals and you only have a few of them. You just have one thing, and then if you don't do it, then you're disappointed with yourself. So you really need to have more so that you're improving and working toward a variety of things. This is about making continuous progress over the course of your life. It's not about achieving this one thing, and then when you're done, and you're like, all right, I'll just sit on my ass and watch Netflix for the rest of my life. That's not really the way this works. So the other thing is they don't have a solid way to relate their goal as to what's important in their life. So it's not prioritized. So you have to make sure that your goals are relevant to what it is that you want to achieve. They can't just be some arbitrary thing that like, oh, I thought that was cool, so I did it, or because if that's all it means, you're not going to be able to develop enough emotion and to tap into your potential and actually get it done. Lack of a clear vision, same type of thing. You need to have clarity. Gentleman here just said, I'm buying 5 units and up. That's clear. He didn't just say, I'm buying multifamily property. That's specific. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then they don't have a way to break a goal down into daily activity. And then, importantly, like I just mentioned with the Netflix comment, what do you do after you achieve a goal? You really need to be doing this on a consistent basis. This is not a one and done thing. So you want to make sure that you're setting new goals, outcomes, before you achieve things that you want, because otherwise you're not going to stay motivated. You're going to be like, oh, I made it, and then pretty soon you're going to fall on your face. So you can't stop. So the foundation for this is, as I mentioned about the not having enough goals, the first thing you're going to want to establish is different categories for your goals, categories of improvement. So you want a variety of categories, and we're going to go over what those are going to look like for each of you here shortly. So a category is a long-term or lifelong, whereas an outcome is temporary. So your categories, and if you guys are writing down, we'll be at a section to write, but for everybody, it's basically going to be your family. Your personal categories are going to be your family, your fitness, your finances, your faith, and your friendships. And that's basically your personal categories to some extent. Your business categories might be different for everybody. Some of you guys, I'm sure, are still working jobs, so you're going to have some professional goals that are in your own job. Maybe public speaking. That at one point in time was a goal for me. It's still something I'm working on. But these are important things for you to have professional goals that are separate from what do I want to do with my family. And a lot of people don't have family goals, but they're just as important as any other aspect of your goals. Personal life and professional life. So you'll have about 5 for each. You can have as many business goals as you want, or as many business categories as you want, but you don't want to get over the top. And your family ones, the reason why they're pretty much the same for everybody, or your personal ones, is, we all have the same lifelong issues. It's always family, it's always your health, your finances. Those don't vary very much from person to person. Your outcomes are going to be different, your goals are going to be different, but the categories are going to be pretty much the same. So I put examples. Your physical condition, sales. If you're in sales, you might have sales goals for all of us realtors, and any other salespeople. A lot of us are in sales, and whether you know it or not. But then we're going to do yearly and quarterly for all of this stuff. You need to break it down. So each category should have several goals or outcomes. So if for example, your fitness category, you're going to want to have a couple goals, not one thing. And the benefit of that is it's going to keep you being healthy and operating under a consistent, healthy lifestyle. So, like the other week, I had a goal. I wanted to go to the gym 3 times that week. Well, I only went twice. So, if that was just a goal and it wasn't an outcome of being healthier, I'm a complete failure. I might as well give up and just stop even trying to do it. Well, that's not really the way it works. It's an outcome. So, all right, next week, 3 times, and then the following week, and so it doesn't really, that's the way you want to be in every one of your outcomes, so that you're making consistent progress, and that's how you're going to separate yourself from your competition, which is everybody else out there. So at this point, I want to take a brief break and have you guys write down your personal categories, which are going to be pretty much the same for everybody. Family, finance, fitness, friendships, faith, and a category that I like to add, which is continuous improvement, so that you're making a commitment to yourself. What am I going to do this year to continuously grow my abilities in these things? And then professional categories, completely up to you. So this is where we could really get lost and spend a lot of time, but we're not going to do that. One of them, if you're in this room, should probably be real estate, since you're here. If it's not, I don't know what you're doing here. And if you don't own a real estate property yet, there's no reason on earth why you wouldn't make one of your goals by the end of this calendar year to buy a property. Totally attainable for everybody in this room. Brandon will probably buy one tomorrow. That's just the way he rolls. Buy him one right now. Right? So look, by the end of this meeting, you could buy a property. So yeah, it's totally doable. But if you don't have a property, that should be on your goal list. And then you could have a career or sales goal. But we're not going to get into the weeds on all this stuff right now. What we're going to do, just make one goal for the year in each one of these categories. So one family goal, one financial goal, one fitness outcome, one friendship outcome, one faith outcome, and a continuous improvement outcome. What that is, it's a little bit of a vague idea, but like, I'm going to go to a course or a training, or I'm going to find a mentor, or I'm going to come here 6 times out of the year, or 8 times a year, or I'm going to join the organization, something like that, where it's not specific to one of these categories, but it's continuous improvement. And then on your professional categories, do your real estate outcome. So we're going to break for a little bit, do this, and then share and talk to it with the other people, or talk about what they are with your table. And then once we get, then we'll resume. But I want you guys to all have the opportunity, make the opportunity to do this tonight while you're still here. And then when you go home, you can go and add other ones to these categories at your time. This is a time-consuming process. Beginning to end, I probably spend a day or close to it doing this each year, and then it's substantially easier after that. But at the beginning, it can be time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be tonight, because we're just doing one outcome per category. So go ahead, I'll stop talking for a little bit, and then we'll resume in a bit. I know once you get rolling, it's easy to keep in the groove, and you'll probably want to keep doing it, but make some time this week or this weekend, make a point to book 4 hours out to finish what you started tonight. And I'm going to go over some more stuff for what you can do to kind of take that from this into something that's manageable and achievable. So you have these outcomes and you have these categories now. Now the next thing that you need to do, and this is what is going to be the time-consuming part, you're going to have to think on this and think on it over a couple days and come up with a vision for each category. And what a vision is something that's this is the ideal level of this category that you can imagine right now at this point in time. This is the part that's going to change year over year, because you probably can't conceive of a level of success in a certain area that you're at right now. It's going to be a step process. But as of right now, you want to say, look, ideally, my physical fitness is going to look like this, or my finances are going to look like this. So you don't have to limit yourself to just the year. This is a vision. it needs to be something that actually excites you. If it's just like, oh, I'm going to be able to run a 5K just because, that's not very exciting, and you can achieve it pretty easily. And what's the objective there? Your vision needs to be, I want to be healthy so I can do anything that I want with my children or grandchildren as long as I'm around. It needs to be something that is impactful. And remember, clarity is power. So the more clear you are about what that vision looks like, the more emotion you're going to be able to associate with it, and the more it's going to help you achieve these things. If you just do the outcomes and you don't have the vision in these areas, you're not really going to be that much better off than if you just wrote some goals out on a piece of paper. The vision is the juice that gets you up in the morning and helps you make it happen. So don't so don't skip this part, and it is going to be very time consuming, and we won't have time, and it's honestly going to be different for every single person in the room. Even though the categories might be the same, your vision is going to be different. So, and what drives me, why I get healthy, might be different from why someone else gets healthy, or why I want to have finances is different from why somebody else wants to do well in an area. One of the things I've been dwelling on a lot this year is this whole concept of financial freedom and why we're all here. But you really need to think about, if you had financial freedom today, what is it that you would do with it? That's not as easy as it sounds. Think about that for a couple days, because if you knew what it was that you would do when you had it, chances are there's a lot of that stuff you can start doing right now to prepare yourself for when the time comes. And you might find a bunch of crap that was in your life that you got rid of by starting to do the things that you want to do when you're already free, and now it's going to accelerate the process. So as we're talking about goals and outcomes, this is a good acronym that's all over the place. You've probably heard it before. This isn't a Tony Robbins thing, this is just a goal thing. But it's about goals. They call them SMART. So you want a goal or an outcome to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, this is the purpose-based things, and time-bound. Yes, you can take a picture of that if you want. But if you Google SMART goals, it'll probably come up for you like it did for me to get into this presentation.
You look good.
Thanks. So as you're making these outcomes, you can judge them by how they are in these areas, and that's how you're gonna improve the clarity of your vision and your outcomes by holding them against this SMART criteria. Because and then you want to write it down. That's why we took time to do it this evening. But as you're expanding on that, write them down. And the time-bound part is, if you don't have a timeline, a goal without a timeline is just a wish. So you gotta set a date on this stuff. I saw this. It was a video of Elon Musk, and he was saying, well, if you have goals that take a year, why don't you just say, I'm going to do this in 3 months, and then cut out all the extra junk that you were going to waste time on in that time. I thought that was really good advice. Seems crazy, but it's great. It's working for him, apparently. And then you have to commit. So commitment, you have to leave yourself no other option. You have to make sure that you're gonna achieve this stuff no matter what. You can't just say, oh, well, maybe if this doesn't work out, I'll do something else. I'm gonna get my real estate license, but I don't know whether I'm gonna be serious about it, or, you might as well not even get it if you're not gonna commit to it. I heard a saying this morning that a chicken participates in the breakfast, but the pig is committed. I'm like, that's good. I didn't know I was going to use that tonight, but so now making it happen for every one of the categories that you guys developed, you want to come up with a vision for that area. And that is the time-consuming part of this process. That's where it's going to take you 4 hours. It might even take you a few days of thinking about it, and then you're several hours while you're writing it down. I just got back from a trip, and I always, when I'm on vacation, that's usually when I try to take the time to do this, because otherwise it's hard to block out that kind of time without being distracted.
One of the things that I always do in the vision part is live in one of the questions, one of the areas for a day, instead of trying to go all over the place and just focus in on that one area.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thought process, because otherwise it is overwhelming, and you can't
Focus.
Yeah, it's hard to shift your thought process from one thing to the other. It's like, okay, what was my vision about finances? Okay, now what's my vision about friendships? Like, you're in a totally different headspace.
And then what happens is you might be, like when you first say I'm focusing, say on health, and one or two things come to you, or relationships, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later, a whole bunch of thoughts flow through you, and you just write it down. So it's good. It's helped me to live in one question a day.
Right. And Michael, he's got a lot of experience with this process as well, through some Tony Robbins training. So one of the things I think is important is, as you're looking at your vision and you're thinking about, how do I get from where I'm at now to that vision, because it might seem so far away, you need to be realistic about your current situation, but you need to not be fatalistic. So you can't think of your situation as being worse than it actually is. You got to give yourself credit for what you've already achieved, where you're at. You've survived 100% of days so far. You can't discredit that. So that's something you really need to consider and think about. Don't be overly fatalistic. So then you want to develop outcomes that are going to take you toward your vision in each category. So you have your vision, you have each category, you now have a strong vision for what you want to achieve there. Now you need to develop an outcome and you can do this process over any real timeline, 3 years, 5 years, a year. I like to do it a year. There's a lot of folks that like to do this as a 3 or a 5 year thing, which is not a bad idea. I think that's probably good. But if you want to do it for a year, that's probably the baseline of your regular planning. So come up with an outcome. Sometimes the outcome could take more than a year to achieve. In my case, my broker's license that I've been working on for the past 5 years. Well, now I committed. I said, well, I'm just going to take a course, and now I'm signed up for it, so I have nothing else going on. Then I'm going to go do it. So it will get done. So that's why it's important to commit and schedule things. So you want to break your yearly goals up into 4 pieces, 4 quarters. That makes it easy. And then you do your yearly goals first, or your yearly outcomes first, based on your vision, and then break that up into 4 pieces, and then create your Q1. It's probably better if you create all the quarters at once, but if that's too overwhelming, just do the year and then quarter 1. But then you realize no matter what, you're gonna have to revisit the process at the end of each quarter, but you will be doing it more frequently than that. So this is what helps plan what's happening in your week. So you have quarterly outcomes. Now when the week comes, when it's Sunday and you're like, what am I gonna achieve this week? You're not just dealing with the flood of stuff that comes in that you have to deal with. You're intentionally taking steps that you've planned out to achieve that are actually going to make a difference in achieving the outcome that you want to achieve. If you don't schedule and plan those things, other people are going to push their outcomes and agendas on you, and you're not going to have any time left to do the things that are really important to you. And you have to examine if stuff's not getting done, like this broker thing, is it really important to you? Are you taking it seriously? How important is it? Do you have a strong enough vision? And then as those things develop, it'll be easier to get leverage on yourself and achieve those things. So after you've done that, a big important part of this is getting resourceful, is realizing, okay, so I have 3 outcomes in my fitness. Whatever, I'm not going to go through all of them. I was just talking to this gentleman back here about he's doing an Ironman as one of his outcomes. Super impressive. I want to do a sprint one, which is shorter. But so part of that is, there's swimming, biking, and running. So now I know you got to train in those areas. Which area are you weak in? In mine, it's swimming. So I've got to work on that. But that's an easy example. So you have to think, where can I swim in the wintertime? Like if I want to train over the winter, I have to find someplace with an indoor pool or get really comfortable swimming in cold water. One or the other. But you have to think about what resources you have already that can help you achieve the outcomes you want to achieve. A lot of people skip this step. They think, oh, well, that guy's got all of this. It's easy for them. They have access to all of this money. It's easy for them to buy a deal. They're lendable. You don't think about, well, hey, there's people in this room that would probably lend you money to do your first deal. Who are those people? How can I meet with them? How can I learn about that process? How can I learn more about a deal so that I know when I'm looking at something if it is a deal and it's not a piece of junk? So if I know that stuff and I have a connection with someone that's going to lend me the money for the deal, I can now put a deal together. So if I'm just resourceful, I can find a way to make that property purchase happen much faster than if I just focused on not having the money or having to get my LLC set up or having to get pre-approved for a loan or having to save a down payment. You can't focus on all those negative things. You need to think about who can help me make this happen, not why can't I do it. And execution. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you want to plan each of your weeks versus just letting them happen to you. So the prior week, there's going to be to-dos that come up for next week. Things that have to happen next week. So you're going to make a list of those as they come up. This is like pre-planning. And then there's going to be things that didn't get done this week that now have to get done next week. And then there's going to be things in your quarterly outcomes that, hey, I have to get this stuff done during the week in order to make progress on my quarterly outcomes. You're going to list those things throughout the week as they happen, if you're not just getting them done. Ideally, you're just going to deal with them in that week and finish them, and then they don't even show up next week. But that everything isn't in that scenario. Now you want to look at the list of things that you have to do and say, how does that relate to one of my outcomes? And you want to group like categories. So if there's a couple things that I want to do, like go to the gym, run, eat healthy, not drink, those things might happen in a week, and they are all relate to physical fitness or health. So you want to group those things together and then be clear about why it is you want that to happen, relate to your vision, and then that's going to help you make sure that those things happen that week. And it's important to group that and just not make a big to-do list, because that's boring, because you have things like, I got to take my dry cleaning in, then I got to run 3 miles, and then I got to balance my checkbook. I don't know if that's a great example, but you know what I mean? It's a bunch of unrelated activities that have nothing to do with one another, and you can't build any momentum whatsoever around them. So this is an important part of the planning process. This is what I always do on like Sunday afternoons or Saturday if Sunday's going to be busy. And then stay motivated and just don't give up on it. This is the most important part of it. Once you're done with this, you can spend a ridiculous amount of time planning and doing all those things, but if at the end of the day you don't do a damn thing about it, you're not going to be any better off next week than you are this week, or next year than you are this year. So you got to go out and do something. And there's kind of a magic to this where you don't have to, once you start doing something, other stuff starts to happen, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, other things, you know, as a ball rolls downhill, it gathers momentum. So as you start moving towards this stuff, it's gonna get easier. So if this is stuff that you're having interest in, if you like what I talked about this evening, there's going to be a free event that is a Tony Robbins event. It's online and it starts in 2 days. Doesn't cost anything. Normally this stuff is like $1,000, but I did this QR code link for you, so if you scan it, you can see it. It's a virtual event, so there's no hotel, there's no airfare. You can do this from your desk or your house, and their virtual events are pretty good. They got really good at this during COVID. So this is something I would recommend you check out. It's not going to be, like what I talked about tonight was really specific to goal setting, planning. This is going to be a lot more than that, but they're not going to deep dive into it like we did this evening. But between now and next time, I would definitely encourage you, check this out if this is something that interests you, but make a commitment to spend 4 hours of your time to get really clear about your outcomes and your vision in each of those categories, and then take action steps in them, like listening to more positive content. Like if I want to learn more about real estate, maybe I'll identify 3 podcasts that I think are really good and start listening to one of them. Just subscribe and listen and just start. And then once you start, it's just gonna start happening for you. That's all I have on the presentation this evening. We will probably do buy, sell, trade here, and then you guys will have some networking opportunities. But I will. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we covered before we get into that? And I want to make sure everybody has a chance to take a picture of this if it's something that interests you. Nothing? Sounds good. Guess it was pretty thorough.
You did good.
Thank you.
Back up.
Go ahead.
A couple of,
Yeah, this is probably a good one to take a picture of, because it's kind of the process of what's going to go on from your outcomes and vision to making it happen. Did you get a picture of that? All right, buy, sell, trade. If anybody has any